HR and your PJs. This is the last final episode for the season, so it's kind of sad, but we'll have a second season. So please, everybody, just send in any kind of suggestions or feedback that you have about this season and what you want to see for the next one. We'll be reviewing in August what season 2 will look like, and then hopefully kick off in September. So I wanted to start off this episode today with a question about what has been the highlight of the season for you, your favorite part of PJs. If you've attended, you can just say what's your favorite part. But if you haven't yet, then I guess you can tell us what makes you happy. So we'll start with Caroline.
I'm always first. Is that because I'm top of the list?
Yeah, you are.
I've really enjoyed it every week. It's just been something really nice and happy during the week, during those dark days of the first few weeks that was so scary. And I just feel like we've learned every week, and it's been great to see the human approach that everyone's taken to getting through what's been quite a scary period. So
definitely.
I look forward to season 2.
Thank you. Maybe we should do some intros as well, because I think there's some new people on this episode. So Heidi, could you introduce yourself and then just share what's been the highlight of the season for you?
Hi, I'm Heidi Elsbury. I'm sorry I put my camera on. I'm just making some lunch as well because I'm like in between calls. So, yeah, I'm the head of happiness. I work for Vocovo, who do hardware and software solutions for team communications. That sounds really long-winded, doesn't it? But if you see the headsets in Wix or TK Maxx, there are headsets who do the hardware and the software. So my favorite bit has been, it's a little bit similar to Caroline, actually. I haven't been able to make every week recently because I've just been so crazy on a Thursday, but I've just really enjoyed meeting with people in the HR community and just hearing what everyone's done and how everyone's approaching all the COVID situation. It's really inspired me and gave me lots of ideas of things that we can do in our company. So thank you for that.
Cool. Thank you, Heidi. Jackie, this is your first time on PJs, so could you just do an intro of yourself and then just share what makes you happy?
Hey everyone, yeah, I'm Jackie Dial. I'm a Human Experience Director at the Happiness Index. What that means, I guess, is I'm trying to put the people element and work out how everyone can get the best experience, both from an internal company employee point of view, but also everyone that we work with externally as well. So it's great to meet you all and great to be part of this session. What makes me happy is this beautiful sunshine, I guess. Especially in this COVID time, I think it's been one of the things that's got a lot of people through it, where we can get outdoors and just enjoy some fresh air. And long may it continue for a bit anyway.
Thanks, Jackie. Jenny. Caught you mid-sip.
Hi, sorry, mid-sip of tea there. Jenny, I was going to say for Jackie and Heidi, I'm Jenny Whitman. I work at Arup. I've got a very long people title. Essentially, it's just trying to do people stuff, make people happy. One of the things I think I have to agree with Caroline on is just the sheer kind of camaraderie of getting through all of this with all of you. Seeing your faces, honestly, it's one of those ones where I tune in and I see some familiar faces, and it's like meeting old friends and new friends, and each week it's such a relaxed atmosphere. And I just think you've created, Rosie, one of the best atmospheres out there on all these sort of webinars and situations like this, where we've felt free to talk, we've felt we're in a trusted environment, and I really value that. I'm going to miss you guys. I seriously am. You know, think about things I will and won't miss in August, because lots of things are kind of winding down, quite rightly, for people to have a break. I will miss you guys because it almost feels like I learned something off you every week. We've all sort of shared vulnerable bits about ourselves every week, and it's felt properly human. Like people have brought their lunch, their kids, their tea, maybe a cheeky G&T at some point. But, you know, it's one of those things where we've all just showed up as we are. And I think that is really valuable. One of those places that you can show up as you are, even though we talk about showing up as you are everywhere else. A genuine place to do that has been special. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Jenny. Joe.
Hey, sorry, I can barely see. I struggled to turn the microphone off then. I'm really squinting here. Hi, I'm Joe. I'm Chief Storyteller at the Happiness Index, which is a very millennial-y title. I'm basically content marketing and branding. Again, not to do a cop-out, but my highlight is sort of it's more just the whole thing. Like, it's so nice to have something like some normality and some regularity in such an abnormal situation that we're in. And it's really nice seeing the same faces and all talking about how we're dealing with like this period. And it's nice knowing that everyone's in it together. It sort of cements it, seeing lots of other people talking about it. So I too will miss everyone.
Thanks, Joe. Helen, I'm going to backtrack to you. You just joined in, but we're sharing our highlights of season 1 of HR and Your PJs.
Okay. Highlights. I think just
Your
really
favorite
just
highlight?
hearing the I think it's just hearing the different elements from people and what, and some of the topics have been, we're all talking about the same thing. It's nice to know that everybody else got the same problems, I suppose. That's my main
And Helen, I think the highlight was you in IKEA one week. That was definitely one of my highlights.
Yeah.
That's my highlight.
Yeah.
Right, thanks, Helen.
Very good. All right, I'm gonna.
That's okay. That's all right. Kevin, what's your highlight?
So I think so many highlights. I think my highlight was absolutely when Jenny noticed that I had a haircut last week. Without question, that was my highlight. But genuinely, like, nobody's done any physical networking in the last 5 months. So it's been really good to put names to faces, people that I knew from the industry anyway, but had never seen their face other than on LinkedIn. So didn't know them as people, just knew them as professionals. So it's been really nice to get to know people as people.
Cool. I like that. Thanks, Kevin. Rebecca.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to add to that now. It's getting harder as you carry on going. I think it feels like I'm echoing everyone else, but a hybrid, I suppose, of everyone else's comments there in terms of, it's been a really nice, safe community that's been created in terms of kind of having very honest conversations, both those that are reassuring and those that are maybe some, kind of thought-provoking at the same time. And, I think so often we kind of look at the diaries ahead and go, oh, God, what have we got, this week? And certainly for some organisations at the moment who are kind of, furloughing staff or, right-sizing organisations. So to have this kind of respite in the week has been quite pleasant. And as you say, certainly, Kevin, as you were saying, in terms of kind of creating a network now that hopefully we'll be back again in the future, but certainly, can remain offline in other ways as well, has been fantastic.
Thank you. Sandip, I know that you've only been on the first episode, so you could share maybe a highlight from your first episode or what makes you happy.
Yeah, so I've been watching the other ones as well throughout when I could get the chance, but I think happy to be part of the first one and the last one of the series, but similar to what everybody else said, where we really haven't had the opportunity to network in person and physically, and it's just great that this technology and then this HR and Your PJs, when it was first set up, just allowed that to happen, and different topics every week, and similar to I think Heidi said about it, then it allowed you to kind of be creative in what you're doing in your organisation, based off of what other people have said and their opinions and views, and the sunshine makes me happy as well.
Shekira.
I think, again, similar to what everybody said, I think just learning, listening, interesting topics, people's views, that has been really good to hear. It's so easy to become so insular in what you and your team are sort of working on, so it's really good to have those views from elsewhere. And then I think sort of more of that, like what Kevin and Rebecca were saying about the networking, just knowing that there's another group of people out there that you could go to for advice or questions or things like that. It's just nice to know that's there. So that's been important and special. So yeah.
Simas, you're up.
I mean, it's my second time I'm joining, so don't have much much to say with as everyone mentioned it. I mean, it's good to be part of a network. Interesting to see what people are saying, and what's happening in general or within the HR community, and also have a bit of fun. Yes,
definitely. Thank you, Valerie.
Yeah, the fun for sure, and the sharing. But also, I'm very grateful. I think you guys are an amazing group of people, and just benefiting from all this, and having that a little bit of cocoon of everything in a way wrapped up every Thursday has been amazing. And your energy, Rosie. But also, I'm very grateful for the. I was on furlough really quite early on in April, and God wanted to get really, really busy doing all sorts of things, but it was quite tough to be on furlough so early on as a HR professional and people professional. And Rosie and Matt, you gave me the opportunity to actually, do early HR in your pages, and that boosted my confidence and just made me feel good really early on. So I think it made a big difference in how I actually approached it all. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Valerie. But Lauren, I think you missed it when we first started going around, but we're sharing our highlights of HR in Your PJs. Your favorite highlight? I think you're muted. Looks like she's on a train. I don't know if she'll be able to respond.
Oh yeah. So got the microphone on now. Hi. So I'm on a train. I didn't want to miss this as it's the last one. It's my first trip. It's my first trip into London since like March. So I'm all dressed up, got my sunglasses on. What makes me happy is the sun, of course, and being around people. I do miss the social interaction of not being in the workplace. So this community has been amazing. I haven't attended all the sessions, but the ones I've attended have definitely been fun. And obviously I'm part of your offline group, like the Guild and all of that. So that's really fun. So I'm grateful that you guys set this up. And yes, being human, everyone's able to not only share HR tips and professional stuff, but just show that you can be yourself. Behind all this work thing and being formal, are human beings. So like I always say, put the human in HR and be yourself. So thank you. And I will miss this as well.
Thanks, Valorna. All right, thanks everyone for sharing. I liked that. That was very cheesy, but it was great. I'm really looking forward to season 2. So we have Sandip and Shekira back on from our first episode, and a lot has changed since that first episode. I was watching the other day, and actually it was just amazing to see how much has changed. We've got joining on every week, and so glad to have you both back. It'd be great if we could just both kick off and just introduce yourselves and what you do. Doesn't matter who starts.
So hi everybody, Sandip. So I am HR employee engagement manager at an academy school. So it's a trust of 9 schools, and so I head up the HR department there for all of the 9 schools. I actually didn't start when I did the first episode. I was in another role as HR manager also for a company called Hudson Beck Group. So they're a collective of like creative kind of agencies and online publications and so on. So the change happened mid-peak pandemic in April. So yeah, lots, and we'll be talking about that I think because Rosie's asked us some questions around that. But yeah, that's me.
Thanks.
Cool. Hi, I'm Shekira. I'm a HR business partner for retail. So looking after our store in London, and I guess it's been an interesting journey through COVID in retail. And yeah, I guess Rosie will come on to get onto some more of the details of what's been going on.
Great, thank you both. So my first question, so around in our first episode, we had you both on to share your predictions about how you see the future of work, where it's heading throughout COVID-19. So one of the predictions was that organizations will have to put more of a focus on the well-being and taking care of their employees in the midst of the current climate, because it's a reflection on their brand and representation of them. So my question is, what is your opinion on this now, 4 months later, and what kind of, have you seen kind of important trends around this?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's still just as important, but it's really interesting to see how it's developed. Like, I don't think anybody predicted from the mental health side how big a deal it would be. Like, all of there's such a variety of complicated factors going on for everybody because of being at home, because of being able to see loved ones, etc. And I think I don't think we ever could have predicted that. And so companies are really having to be creative, thoughtful in how we help our team with that, but also then from the physical point of view, more so as people got into that first, I don't know, 5 weeks, all of the physical, what desk you have, what chair you have, like, have you got going out for a walk, all of that stuff. Like, you kind of know it as a HR professional, DSC assessments, that stuff. I don't think anybody really put that much thought in until we were quite a few weeks in. And then even to the point, like, okay, we're saying great, home working, that's good for people. But then I've had the people who are living in a one-bed studio on their own, and they don't even have necessarily the space for the recommended desk that we're saying that we would pay for, and just things like that. Like, there have been so many, I guess, real life moments of really understanding the people that you're working with that have been an eye-opener. And it kind of, like, yes, we talk about humans, and that's, they're the people we're working with, but I think there's a lot more that we've learned about people that we're working alongside, and that's been, I think it's been a really good thing, and great for people to learn more about each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, obviously I would agree with everything kind of Shekira said. I think, like, my opinion on it now in terms of 4 months in or 5 months in, is that it's an even bigger priority for organizations now to continue and maintain and manage what they have set up. I think the first part, as Shekira said, was ensuring people were set up at home okay, and having the well-being check-ins more often than usual perhaps, and being flexible and in terms of a one-on-one basis, and one shoe size doesn't fit all and so on. But also the things like supporting redundancies and understanding furlough, just understanding it, that was all at the kind of the beginning part. And with that, for some businesses, it was around a question of, can we survive this even? But so with that came getting used to what was happening all over the world with the virus, ensuring people's health was looked after and a priority as well. And I think now that 4 months have passed on, it is definitely still a priority that organizations are really mindful of how they treat their employees, to manage and maintain what they have been doing, and to make sure that all that hard work doesn't go to waste, but be using all that hard work to help them now in planning a return to work, if going back into the office is on the cards at all, or if you're bringing people back off furlough, and just following it through to that. And me myself, I have to admit, I think this has lasted longer than I thought. When I left Hudson Beck Group to go home to work from home for like 6 weeks, I left my stuff there thinking, yeah, I'll be back in a few weeks' time. I'll come pick my stuff up before I leave. Don't worry, I've got all my stuff there now. My replacement's there, and so I'm gonna have to pop in at some point to come and get all my stuff. But I think it lasted obviously a lot longer, but it's just about seeing it all the way through now as well.
Definitely. Thanks, both. Shekira, my next question's for you. You are obviously in M&M's retail. What kind of changes have you seen specifically in retail in the last 4 months? And are there anything that you think will last and become part of the new normal?
Yeah, it's been massive. So not only were we thinking about our staff and how we look after them, how we care for them. Then there was the whole reopening of physical environment and all of the social distancing that you have to put in place for customers. And we bought the Perspex things for the tills, and we have so many rules and regulations around social distancing, cash handling, cleaning, etc. Like, there's so many of those things that it's beyond complicated. And I honestly am so grateful to all the teams that helped us implement that, because everybody was learning and it was brand new and starting from scratch. So I think that's been massive. What do I think will stay? I think there's a huge piece around change management. And whilst we all know it, it's so easy, and I'm definitely guilty of it, of underestimating the impacts of that on our, not only like your frontline staff, but also the managers as well. I think especially for line managers, we know what everybody is going through, but for managers in particular, they're getting asked questions about the virus, questions about job security, and all of these things, which, yes, it's slightly part of your role as a line manager, but there's a line manager is taking on a lot of emotional need from their team and their direct reports, which we didn't necessarily think was going to happen. That's an eye-opener. So I think just really engaging, teaching, encouraging everybody to understand that change management curve and how everybody can be going through that at a different point because of the job changes, their personal situation, their family, whatever it is. And we can't just say, oh, but they're slightly underperforming, or they're slightly not doing this that we expected of them. We really need to give ourselves that reality check that there is so much going on, so many changes. We really need to be careful and mindful of that.
Yeah, definitely. Sandeep, you mentioned at the beginning of the call in your introduction that you moved to a new job. Congratulations. I hope it's going well. Since our first episode, can you just share the experience that you've had since starting a new role, and especially in HR in the middle of a pandemic?
Yeah, so I it was funny because everything was all kind of obviously arranged before really, like, as I said, like the lockdown happened and all that kind of stuff. So I set expectations with myself of how onboarding should run, and how we'd maybe be onboarded at the school, based off of the standard from my previous employer and what we had set up there. But and we did have 2 onboardings whilst in lockdown, which I think I mentioned in the first HR and Ya PJs, which went extremely well. And the onboarding that I received with my new employer, it did deliver. So things like just basic stuff, my equipment and setup was all sent to me way before my start date. I had intro calls and was allowed to be eased into everything as you would expect in a normal onboarding. But the fact that you're at home and haven't physically met these people, that was allowed as well. I have found that I parked some things for when I am back in the office, but it's things that aren't detrimental to my work now, my output now. It's things like managing my team, having never met them physically. I want to connect with them on that personal level. So I just ensure that I'm really aware of that, and in any interaction I have now, I'm trying to get as much out of it as I can, and on kind of like that personal level to help build the relationship. But starting a new HR role specifically during these transformative times was, I felt, actually easy for me. The reason why is the approach that I took was taking what I did around COVID, specifically leaving Hudson Beck Group, and seeing if it needed to be done where I was going, and it didn't need to be done. And I think that's obviously a massive difference that I'm in the public sector and education world, but quickly then ask the correct questions to see, okay, what does need to be done? So actually at my school, I was actually heavily involved in like the risk assessments for people at high risk, and also running and managing the COVID-19 national testing program for 9 schools. So, obviously we weren't doing that at Hudson Beck Group, but us being in a school, we had that, I think that preference to be able to, send our employees to go get tests. So it was that, and I was like, okay, great, I'll just throw myself into that. And you just have to have, I suppose, the foresight of adapting quickly, which I had, and accepting what's going on right now, in this case COVID, and then what are the key priorities for the people, and it was health on this occasion. And that slowly moved into things like returning back into the office, and alongside that, it was the normal process if you were moving roles at any time, pandemic or no pandemic. So getting used to your responsibilities, your organisation's priorities, projects that you'll be leading, etc. Yeah, that's how it was.
Thank you. It's I asked Shekira this question about retail earlier, but have you seen any kind of changes in education that might last, or any kind of big challenges we've had to overcome?
Yeah, so I think like the biggest for education, firstly, had to be, I think, switching from teachers from classroom to online lessons, and I kind of saw it from both sides. I saw it from this side as an employer, but I saw it in front of my eyes. My husband's actually a teacher, so I actually saw it from his point of view as well. It's quite helpful actually, because I could just take a lot of the learnings that, you know, from him, and then I can just implement it on our side. But the return to school for children in years 1 and 6 on June 1st. That felt like ages ago. It was only last month, but I wasn't involved in that too much in aspect to like the teachers themselves and the physicalities of the schools. It was more the other side of the leadership team and like operations teams and stuff. But I know from speaking to them, it was very challenging. Following regulations, and there was a lot of confusion around that whole June 1st reopening of schools and stuff, but also negotiating with unions and parents. I think in the education world, we won't, you know, I haven't worked in such a unionized organisation before, so yeah, obviously negotiating with that, and of course with parents as well. So we had challenges with some roles that had to take place in the school, but we pivoted to see how else they could contribute, and that was super great to see that we were already on board with that. And in terms of support staff, so non-teaching, the challenge would have been most definitely working from home, because it's not a norm in the education world. It's you're in the school. However, as I mentioned, doing the return to work tasks now, everyone has found it way more beneficial working from home. And I think we talk about it loads, where we've been forced into this, and it's actually a good test period for companies who were maybe a little bit hesitant about working from home and that flexibility and so on. So it's been way more beneficial for us working from home from a focus point of view and an output point of view, but also personally. So one of the biggest things is my school doesn't have, or my trust, sorry, doesn't have a work from home policy. And as I said, it wasn't the norm, and we were forced to do it because of COVID, but now it's changed the way of thinking, and I'm actually going to be working on that now, which is amazing. So it's a great thing that's come out of this, obviously, but and I hope other organisations who saw it the same way have changed their minds about that as well.
Yeah, we've had a few of our previous hosts kind of say the similar things, where they have changed their working from home policy, or their flexibility policies, to include more days working from home and more flexible hours. So yeah, you're right, it's a great output of this unfortunate situation. Yeah. Spencer actually asked a question. Hi, Spencer. Welcome to PJs. He was just asking if you offer a diversity inclusion policy at school for your students with disabilities and those going through difficulty with COVID-19.
So I think if this is around, so when the report came out, I think around June time possibly, where it was found obviously that our, Black, Asian, minority ethnics were more at risk of with, catching the virus and so on. We quickly reacted to that. So we do have a diversity inclusion policy anyway, as kind of a standard suite of policies. But as soon as that came out, we actually created a survey ourselves, and just asking questions around their feelings and thoughts around that, and what can we do more as employers, that what we aren't doing already, because we're recognizing that this is obviously, this is something, and we don't want to ignore this statistic or fact or this report or anything like that. And I think the worst thing we could have done is ignore it and be like, we're doing everything we can, it's fine. Everybody, as I mentioned, so nobody was furloughed or anything like that, but everyone was switched to working from home. But we just put in extra measures, and I think I'll probably talk onto it a little bit later, but it's that individual conversation of how that person's feeling. It's their point of view, and it's not a one shoe size fits all. That's how we kind of made sure that that was kind of addressed, and like I said, didn't want to ignore it at all. So yeah, we would have loved to use happiness index, but
and sorry, he also asked, what about your students with disabilities? Do you have any insight into that at all?
I actually didn't, because I didn't work on that side. So that was the leadership team side in terms of the head teachers and the executive head teachers. So I actually didn't get involved with the student side of stuff, the people side of stuff. But you know, it's in our values that everything we do has to connect back to the benefit and the advantage of the pupil. And, you know, we're doing everything for them to get an amazing education, no matter what their background, no matter what disadvantage they may have. It's always going back to that. So I am absolutely certain that we would have covered that. And, you know, yeah, we would have had that in our mind.
Okay, thanks. Shekira, I'm gonna move over to you now. Could you you mentioned to me or a little bit ago that you were working on actually you came to the decision to not furlough your staff, and you were working on repurposing them. Could you just talk us through that a little bit and how you came to that decision?
Yeah, so it was a company decision. So what M&M's is part of the Mars group. So we are a values-driven organization led by the Mars family. Part of that was we are a very large organization. We didn't think it was right for us to be taking money from the government, and that money should be there for smaller organizations who financially need it more than us. So for all the right reasons, that was what we did. But what it did mean was that we had, in particular in our retail stores, 100% of our staff sat at home on full pay, and because we're working in retail, most of those couldn't work from home. There was nothing to do for them, which, you know, it's a balance of trying to do the right thing for your staff, also keep them engaged and motivated. We know for some people who, you know, if they were living on their own, being at home on their own would be very isolating. They would be bored. And so we're not that we were trying to overwork them and make the most of the money, but it's also that balance for the staff as well. So what we did, there's always that list of projects you always wanted to do, but you never had time or anybody to do them. And that's where we repurposed we tried to repurpose a lot of our stuff. I haven't gotten to hand some really great statistics about what we managed to achieve very quickly. But one thing, and we're still kind of working through that stuff now, but one thing that was quite prevalent was, do we always know what skills our staff have outside of the obvious, outside of what they're employed to do? We know that there might be, particularly where I work in retail, often you have a younger demographic. And they might be doing an online coding course or an online marketing, or, you know, something or they're studying something at university. Those skills that they're learning aren't necessarily for the job that I've employed them to do. But can we maybe make use of that? And can that maybe turn into a longer term career for them within our organization, maybe in a slightly different area? So I think what we need to get better at doing is, whether it's through your HR platforms and your associate profile, your employee profile information that you track, or whether it's simply the line manager talking to their team about, hey, what do you enjoy doing outside of work? What are you studying? What are you learning? Whatever way it is, I think we need to get better at that, because we know the world is changing, the jobs are changing, particularly in retail. That's going to change going forward. So the more we can know about our teams, the better experience we can make it for them and for us as well. So that's been, it's been a really amazing piece of work and opportunity to be involved in.
That's really cool. I think it creates definitely a more human experience, and getting your employees involved in something that they're really passionate about on the side as well. That's amazing.
To ask you a question.
Yeah.
And just maybe for the general audience overall, as you mentioned about the repurposing the people and then finding the skill set that the company might not always be aware of. And you mentioned the area of, like, well, a perfect example, coding or any other trait or skill that people might be interested, not necessarily related to the direct duties at work. My idea, well, correct me if I'm wrong here, but like, how you would adjust, because potentially, if the skill set that the people are trying to have or attain is not matching their direct business, well, what are you doing basically on a day-to-day basis? You are on the risk of losing that talent eventually. You know what I mean? Because they might shift different industries, works, etc. How would you go around that, like managing that trade-off between repurposing and maintaining the talent?
Yeah, that is definitely a risk, and one that we're aware of. But I guess it's kind of two parts. One is the short term. How you're trying to keep them engaged, you're trying to make the most. So there are, different projects, different bits and pieces that it's a benefit to them, because like one example off the top of my head, somebody who was doing graphic design outside of work. So that's what he enjoyed, and we've used him to create like front covers and posters and different things for projects that we needed. And now that he's done that and demonstrated his skill set, there is a particular assignment that we would have hired some sort of artistic designer to contract to do a piece of work for us. So we can potentially sort of hire whatever to this current employee to do that for us. And then I guess it's about providing those opportunities for them to build and grow. And they might leave. I might not be able to provide them a role in the future, but I guess we're trying to be mindful. We're trying to think and be flexible. The world of work is going to change. So as new roles, as new opportunities evolve, how do we kind of fit these things together? And yeah, it is a risk. There's no perfect answer, but we're trying.
Thank you.
Thanks. That's really, really interesting. I love that. So my last question for you both is, looking forward to the rest of the year, what do you think the future work looks like for you and your organization?
I think it's going to be some really basic stuff that I'm going to say first, but and I think what personally my opinion would be, and what I'm going to adopt where I am now. But I think firstly, it looks like a lot more open lines of communication, and what I mean by that is people feeling free enough to be able to talk about what makes them work, what is worrying them right now, and what can a company do to help support that. And that leads into a lot more flexibility and trust from employers. We've had to do lots of flexibility and lots of trust. We've been forced into doing that, but it's worked. It's worked in the two. We already had a work from home policy at Hudson Beck Group, but I think it made it stronger, if anything. And obviously, it's definitely worked at the school. Work doesn't have to be 9 to 5, and I think if Matt's listening in or hears us afterwards, he's been saying this for ages, but work doesn't have to be in an office 9 to 5. And the thing for me is what the future work looks like is a real tangible care and consideration for an individual specific need. So I'm not saying that it wasn't there before, but I feel that the tangible part is, I feel that you can really see it. You can really see that care and that consideration for the individual, especially in my role as HR. You obviously see it a lot more. And it's also, I feel it's my role to be, if people aren't doing that, like managers or anything, it's my role to help empower them to do that, and to, just show that consideration and that care. I think organizations should 100% all adopt that, if not already, to obviously keep their workforce engaged. And we go back to the beginning about reflecting of a positive image of their brand and reputation. It's not just we did this during the pandemic, it's an ongoing thing. And I think companies who may have been asleep to those ideas will most definitely be awake now. That, and I hope it's a massive driver towards, for them thinking we want to be an employer of choice. This is what we should be doing. I think on the flip side, sadly, I think future of work for some roles in the short term and some industries, it looks like they'll just need a lot more time to recover. And we're talking about unemployment rates and so on, but I think it will obviously take a little bit of a longer time, but that's the flip side of it. And I think my last thing is, in terms of my opinion, is the main important thing for me is I think the future of work in terms of let's return to work and so on. I think don't rush it. Where I've kind of put that into the school now is we're not rushing it. It's a really cliche statement, but if it's not broke, don't try to fix it. So, and what I mean by that is I understand the importance of people being around colleagues and in offices to support and having that social aspect and helping their mental health and well-being and performance. But some people have been flourishing working from home, and it goes back to having those like open dialogues, gauging people's point of views, and showing that care and consideration, and implementing something that's going to benefit your people, your culture, and your business. So I kind of see a hybrid in the future of working from home and in the office, especially for companies who've never explored it before, like mine, and just keep people in the loop the whole way, like all the way through. That's kind of my take on the future.
Yeah, I think mine's kind of twofold, from a personal and then the sort of business side of it. I think for me, the virtual side has been, it has been really great, but I've definitely gone through my ups and downs with it. But I think my team was already, a lot of my colleagues were abroad anyway, so I was always virtual with them. But we definitely improved our ways of working. There's a lot of people, you know, with the technology, that it's easier, quicker, faster to have a quick chat, or, you know, little conversations that you need to have, a lot more collaboration. And so I think things like that are really positive. But then from a personal side, I've been through the whole too much screen time, the headaches and impact on my mental health, etc. So I guess it's that, you know, working from home will look different to everybody because of their scenario. And again, we need to not forget that. And just be mindful of that. I think building on what Sandip just said at the end about returning to the office, we've been thinking about how do you return to the office. You put in place social distancing, you have every other desk, etc. You can do that, and that's fine. But like Sandip said, some people working from home has been really good for them, and it's worked, and we've proved that you can do that. So for us, it's about asking the question, why are we going back to the office? Like, what is the purpose of the office? And just, again, we don't want to rush it. All the things that Sandip said about the social connection, the meetings, the collaboration, yes, we know they're true, but we just wanted to stop and think for a moment, what is the purpose of people commuting to get into one building? What are they going to do there? And, you know, is it for collaboration? Is it for social? Whatever it is, that's fine, but let's just be a bit defined about what they're doing, and how can we then enhance that experience and what you're going there for. And so yes, it will be tailored for each individual, each team, each building, etc. But let's just think about it before we go straight back to normal. Is there any opportunity to improve or change things for the better?
Great, thank you both. I think that's both of you said. I totally agree with everything you said, and just it's really insightful. Just wanted to open the floor for anybody who had questions for our two guest hosts today, or any last comments. Is that a no?
No, thank you very much.
Okay. All right, well, I'm gonna just finish off with saying thank you, everybody who's been joining on, or even if it's your first time, thanks for joining the last episode. It's been really, really fun to get to see familiar faces each week, and to just run this and host this and get to know people a little bit better in the community. So thanks, everybody, and you'll hear from me shortly about season 2.
Thanks for hosting, Rosie.
Thank you very much. You've been brilliant.
Thanks, Shekira.
Thank you, Rosie. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.